we have Anas with us. Anas, welcome back. Hope your trip back from the Middle East was a smooth
Good morning.
flight. What'd you learn
Oh,
while
I
you were
learned a
there?
lot. Good morning, everyone. Um,
Because we
all
can
right.
learn
I
what you learned.
I went to Arabic. That's the energy conference at Abu Dhabi, which is sponsored by ADNOC. It is literally the largest energy show on earth. It's
Wow.
just unbelievable. 215,000 people came in. Um, just to go through the expo, you need 2 days. And they
Yeah.
have almost all who is who in the energy industry worldwide. But there are two lessons out of it. The first lesson is we are seeing right now a conversion between the energy industry and the IT industry because of the AI. So the
Okay.
whole conference, yes, it was an energy conference, but we saw so many IT companies. I mean, every major IT data center AI thing was there. And I think what's going to happen is, as a result of this, we are going to see a new
New
born
market.
companies that we never seen before, which
Yeah.
is kind of a joint venture between the energy companies and the AI companies. Just a second, the sun is rising here, so let me just
All right.
close
Sure.
this window. Okay.
Uh,
So that's the first lesson that this convergence between energy and AI, and the
hasn't
idea here.
hasn't natural gas kind of like telegraphed that that was going to happen? I mean, it's been a huge move in that gas, and
I
isn't
mean,
that the
yes,
AI
yes.
story?
I
Uh,
will talk about that in a minute.
okay.
So the issue here is to have AI, you need energy. There is no AI without energy. So that's one side of the story. But for the energy industry, they need AI on all fronts for various reasons, of course, increasing efficiency, reducing cost, etc. But the energy industry, especially the oil and gas industry, has a problem. And this problem been there for a very long time, but it became really a serious problem now and going forward. Because it is a cyclical industry, we've been losing a lot of people. So even people who went to school and studied petroleum engineering and geology, etc., if they get laid off a couple of times, they are going to go find another job and they are going to shy away from the industry. That's why the oil and gas industry was way ahead of everyone else, even ahead of the IT companies when it comes to robotics. They really push that because they need to compensate. The other issue for why the oil and gas industry was pushing for robotics, because if you look around the world, they really produce oil and gas in very strange areas. Whether you are talking about North America, whether you're talking about the kind of like Alaska, Siberia, or you want to talk about the deserts of the Middle East and the sub-Saharan Africa. You are talking about either extreme cold or extreme hot weather. So robotics basically becomes important because not everyone wants to be there. Then you look at where they are operating, for example, in deep sea in the Gulf of Mexico. They are 150 miles away from shore, where people have to stay there for at least 2 weeks or more to produce that oil. So they are forced to go toward robotics. But
Yeah.
since this climate change issue came about, there was a clash. And probably this will be one of the highlights of today's show, that we ended up with a serious problem. The oil and gas industry made a historic mistake. And the historic mistake is they thought if they do PR by establishing some nonprofit organizations promoting the oil companies or promoting oil and gas, then they are doing their job. What they did not notice was they were focusing on the older people who owns properties so they can sign leases with them. While the climate change people went to first graders 20 years ago and they started teaching them. 20 years later, the older people died
Yeah.
that been kind of convinced that the oil industry is good because they are generating income from it, while the new generation that is looking for jobs or going to university is all over the place. And no one wants to work for the oil industry because of because they've been taught for 18 years about climate change. So we have shortages, and those shortages are going to be severe in the future. So the push for AI basically comes natural as a result of that. The second point, or the second lesson from Arabic, I'm going to repeat the statement that we repeated there for several times, including the head of the conference, who is the CEO of ADNOC, and U.S. Interior Secretary, which is, there is no energy transition, but energy addition. And the idea here is very simple, and go back to your question about natural gas. We have this massive energy demand because of AI. And as a result, this idea that one source of energy will replace the other is not going to happen. And therefore, the energy transition is not going to happen. But we need more energy, and that's why we need the additions. And if you look at the IEA forecast, which we'll talk about next, since they have two reports in 2 days in a row, if you look at their forecast, and I have a tweet on this that I tweeted yesterday, and start with, oh my God. If you look at their forecast for the increase in gas demand, it's just unbelievable. Which means that if you are not bullish on gas, you are not investing in gas, you are not investing in LNG, okay, please do, because we are very bullish on LNG. And if you go down a little bit on that, okay, you see this one? Look at that title.
Yes.
That's a presentation I'm going to give very soon at the Money Show. We are bullish on LNG. And therefore,
you have been for 6 months.
Absolutely.
Longer,
but now after Arabic and after the IEA and after OPEC reports, I am more bullish now, given what they have. And those guys who are making the case that we are going to have more LNG supply than demand, and therefore it's bearish, they are missing several points. No, it is not. It's not bearish. If you look at that chart, if you just hold on, go back a little bit, please.
Right,
if you look at that chart, that's OPEC released its monthly report. And if you look at their production, it's back to where it was in 2019. And the
is this
IEA,
this line?
The red one is the 2025.
Okay.
The low one is that during COVID.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So the IEA released two reports. The first one, it released its outlook to 2050. Now let's go back here. If you go back to my pinned tweet to the top, okay, go to the pinned tweet. Okay. So this is, I said, tweet of the decade. So if you click on that, the one from October 23rd, 2020, please click on that. Okay. So this is from October 23, 2020. It says, let me be clear. Investment in renewable energy has very limited impact on oil, if any. The impact will come from passenger vehicle EVs and fuel economy. In my forecast to 2050, there is no peak oil demand. And this is 2020. Now, I was the only one, and I think I have the right to brag here for the following reasons. Because all the forecasts in 2020 by all the major oil majors, by the organizations and the consulting houses, were to 2045. I was the first one to go to 2050. So that's number one. Number two, no peak oil demand. No one before that said this. Everyone was predicting that we will have some sort of peak demand in the 30s or late 30s. Others said in 2019. BP basically said demand already peaked in 2019. By the way, today, the IEA said that oil demand today is 107 million barrels a day. In 2019, when BP said oil demand has peaked, it was 100. So
They
we're
should
already
have
7
hired you.
million above that. And BP,
Yeah.
by the way, it changed its forecast. It was
Yeah,
forced
he
basically to
lost
change the
he lost
forecast.
his job on that call, huh?
Absolutely. So here is the, of course, when I put this tweet about 2020, I put it as pinned tweet. I'm just making the case for people to subscribe to our
No,
services
and all I know,
of
and
these.
also in us, that was the COVID year, right, where crude went negative. You couldn't find anyone that was long-term bullish crude at that time.
Correct,
They,
correct,
so
correct,
I mean, that was
correct,
an excellent, that was foresight, nice
correct.
foresight.
So here is the problem. The IEA told us in 2023, the oil industry is over. And that's it. And we are going to reduce our demand for oil, and we are going to go all for solar and wind and EVs, etc. And that's it. Here is the problem with the IEA. Yesterday, they issued their outlook to 2050. And in this outlook to 2050, they retracted what they said. And one of their scenarios, they said, look, oil demand, global oil demand may not peak by 2050, which means that they support what I said in 2020, and they support what OPEC said in its report several months ago, because OPEC changed their view too, and they said, look, there is no oil demand, or basically updated their view to 2050, and they said there is no peak in oil demand. So the IEA retracted, but we have to be extremely careful with what the IEA did. Here is what. The IEA, as you recall from the first Trump administration, he was cutting off funding to all the international organizations, and he was withdrawing the US from them. So the IEA basically was afraid that they would lose the US funding, so they wanted to play a PR game with Trump. So they started issuing reports and statements to please Trump. So they come up with a statement, for example, saying, talking about shale, explosive growth in shale. And they started talking about US energy independence, which Trump is talking about. So Trump was very pleased with them, and he did not cut them off. Of course, we criticized them at that time because told them, look, there will be a time when shale is going to have serious problems. Here is the problem. The moment the elections ended and Trump lost, they completely switched to climate change. Exactly the opposite. So they were very opportunistic, and they tried to play the game with Biden, and that's why they went all the way from being the International Energy Agency, IEA, to being the International Environmental Agency, IEA. When Trump came back, they got stuck. And the Trump administration basically literally threatened them that the US either will withdraw or will withdraw funding or will force them to change. And as a result, they did change by adding the scenario to please Trump. The IEA is really good at PR. So what they did is, by having this scenario among various scenarios, of course, because they made a 180-degree U-turn, it's going to get the media. It's going to get the attention of everyone. It's going to get my attention and all my colleagues who are influencers on the social media. So they got all the social media they need. They got all the PR they need. And the Trump administration basically is pleased with that because all they are hearing that we have a U-turn. But that's really not the case. Well, they still have other scenarios, and it's very hard for the IEA to change. Regardless, they are wrong. And they are wrong when I say they are wrong. Dale, listen to this. In late 2022, the IEA, in its report, that I think it was November report,
Yes,
says, look, we underestimated the global oil demand for 15 years in a row. So they upgraded the numbers between 2007 and 2021. Imagine this. I mean, who can be wrong for 15 years and come back after 15 years and say, well, sorry, we were wrong? Of course, they'd not say sorry. They will never say sorry.
Can I spin to something that's really kind of a current event that I think
Yes,
has a lot of people confused, and that would be the huge naval buildup in the Caribbean and what might happen in Venezuela. What's your take on that, Anas? I mean, uh,
I am. Yes.
go ahead,
Okay.
because we've moved everything there. And if there's a problem somewhere else, Middle East, Ukraine, anywhere, we're wide open. We're exposed. It would take a lot to move what is already there in the Caribbean.
I am not a political analyst, so I don't know. But the issue here is this. There are people, especially at Bloomberg, who always publish wrong information and wrong reporting. They've been saying that, look, this is because of oil, and if the United States basically change the regime in Venezuela, they are going to have a lot of oil, and then they can get rid of Middle Eastern oil, etc. All these things.
I say just
This
a
is
bunch of theories.
not even theories. This is a complete nonsense. And the reason why, because we heard the same thing about Iraq, we heard the same thing about Afghanistan, we heard the same thing about Kosovo, we heard the same thing about Sudan, the same thing about Yemen, about the same thing about Syria, and it's not.
But
This is the
this
easiest
is
way for
different.
the,
This is President Trump. This is not
okay.
like any of the other administrations that you have
Well,
mentioned.
here is the issue. If the United States wants the Venezuelan oil, all the Trump administration got to do just lift the sanctions, and they can triple imports from Venezuela in a
Yeah.
week.
Okay.
Why spend all
That's the
those
easy
billions of
way.
dollars?
That's what everyone wants to know. Why? I mean, whether
So it
there's
has
any
nothing, whatever it is, it has nothing to do with oil.
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
But there are other
Interesting.
things I would like to discuss quickly before the end of the show. There is a lot of news about what we call oil on water. People are saying that we have record amount of oil on water, and that is bearish. And they are saying that, look, oil prices will decline to 40s. I'm talking about Brent here, because those supplies are going to hit the storage, and storage will go up, and we have a lot of supplies. The IEA in its report today said there is a massive surplus next year. So there is a lot of bearishness because of oil and water. If you look at the numbers, yes, we have more oil on water than ever. But what does that mean? Since 2019 until now, I just told you that oil demand on seasonal basis increased by 7 million. And since oil basically has to be shipped somewhere else, so it's naturally we will have an increase. So to have a record, remember that we have a record oil consumption in the world. You want to talk about record production? We do have record production. You want to talk about record production in the United States? Yes. So it's naturally you will end up with high numbers on water. But the analysts and the journalists miss so many points that this is not as bearish as they say. And I'm going to give you some examples quickly. One of the best examples is this, that Brazil's exports, which is the supply, declined. But their exports to China went through the roof. Exports to China are at record high. That means if supply decreased and exports to China increased substantially, it came at the expense of others. That means I'm shifting ships from the United States to China. I'm shifting tankers from Europe to China. The distance to China is triple that to the United States. It's double that to Europe. So naturally, you end up with more oil on water just because of the trade, although supplies decreased. If you look at the increases in Saudi Arabia, for example, Saudi Arabia increased its exports significantly. But where did those exports go? That's the oil on water. It went to their storage overseas. So this is not an actual supply that we know about. If you look at the impact of sanctions, the Trump administration sanctioned a port in China. So what did China do? Ask the tankers to go to other ports. They did not
Right.
deliver the shipments. Naturally, you end up with more oil on water. If you
Okay.
look at the Iranian shipments, which is the biggest one, basically, the Iranian shipments, Iran, most of the ships carrying Iranian oil turn off their signals. So those journalists who follow the signals on their computers, they don't see them. For some reason, several weeks ago, every tanker carrying Iranian oil turned
Was
on its
counted.
signal.
Huh. Why?
And all of a sudden, people are saying, look, we have massive increase in Iranian exports. Where did that go? If you look at the data, Iranian production
China?
declined.
Huh. Okay. All right.
So
So
those who are,
we got a lot of fake news from everybody but you.
well, so the idea here is
All right.
the numbers are exaggerated.
All
At
right.
the same time, the impact is exaggerated. And therefore, this bearishness out of this has no legs. And that's why prices are still in the 60s. They did not go to the 40s. The
Okay.
other
So
issue that,
it's a value here. You like
correct, and
oil right now.
here is another gold nugget. People are saying that U.S. oil production is increasing, and that is bearish. Nonsense. Here is why. Because we are locking up more oil in the SPR than what we produced, or what the additions basically are this year.
Yeah, we
So
never
that
hear
oil
about
is
the
locked up.
refill. Never hear about the refill of the
Yeah, because
SPR.
there is an agenda. That's why. This bearishness basically is manufactured bearishness. They are going to avoid talking about the other things. So if you compare all the US additions in 2025, production additions, and you look at what we locked up in SPR, what we locked in the SPR is more than the additions. This is bullish. This is not bearish.
Okay. Any risks in the Middle East anymore? I still haven't seen a peace agreement between Iran and Israel.
Well, I mean, the situation is very calm. We are, as you know, the president of Syria was here a few days ago and he met with Trump. There were closed meetings, and I think those are very
Good.
significant meetings. And then MBS of Saudi Arabia is going to be here in a few days. I think
Oh,
in
good.
5 days he's going to be here. He's going to come with a massive group of
Investment.
businessmen and investors. There will
Yeah.
be massive amount. I mean, they are going to talk about investment. They are going to talk about. I don't know how much money they are going, but there are talks about $1 trillion investment in the United States, while U.S. companies are going to go to Saudi Arabia and invest there. So I think there will be, and then they have a new airlines called Riyadh Airlines, and they are going to purchase massive number of planes. So
From
probably
like
this is good for
Boeing
Boeing.
and
Yes.
okay. So that's a great sign. So the petrodollar is not dead, right, Anas?
This is the myth that's being kind of resurrected every single time. There is
I know.
no reason even to worry about the petrodollar. The oil will always be priced in a dollar as long as the American empire is there.
Okay. And what do you think? We have till 2050 till oil demand peaks?
Of course, our outlook is to 2050. We have not looked after 2050, but between now and then, no peak in oil demand. And now the IEA and OPEC agrees with us. And by the way, EV sales in the United States are dropping like a rock.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So another fad comes and goes.
Yes.
What do you think it means for Tesla?
Well, Tesla is a completely different game because
They're going
it's not
robotics
really.
now, right?
Yes, but when it comes to the cars, it has nothing to do with the climate change and all this stuff. People buy
Yeah.
Tesla because they like Tesla, they love Tesla,
Yeah.
and without mentioning kind of naming the groups, etc., I think there are some ethnic groups in the United States that are fascinated buy it, and they are buying it because their friends are buying it. It has nothing
Okay.
to do with being electric, has nothing to do with climate change.
Do you venture into equities related to oil, or is it strictly the black gold and the
Well, my,
other?
my focus right now is really LNG. I am very bullish on every LNG company in the United States,
Okay.
especially the big ones, especially those ones that signed contracts recently and they've been in the news. VG, Next, for example, and of course, Cheniere is the old one. But all of those companies, I'm very bullish on them.
Okay. I really appreciate you coming and filling us in. Very interesting. The new, looks like you could call it allies, tech and oil. They used to
Absolutely.
kind of be,
Tech and
adversaries.
energy. Sorry, tech and
Tech,
energy.
tech and energy. Okay. So thanks, Anat. Get some rest
Thank you.
from your trip and talk to you next
By the
year.
way, I'm heading to Vienna very soon to OPEC.
Okay. So staying on top of it. You know what is great about Anas? He doesn't sit in his office and just do research. He's like the old gumshoe detectives that has his boots on the ground. To really know what's going on, you have to be there. I respect
Thank
that
you.
about you, buddy.
Thank you.
You're a great
Thank you.
reporter for doing that. And I think you
Thank
probably
you.
have some fun going to these things too. Do you have fun? It's fun for you.
Sometimes, depends.
All right, buddy. Announce Alaji, everyone, and follow him on X at his name. Uh, Go to his website, great charts. And if you're in the energy sector, he's got to be part of your intelligence gathering. And that's a wrap for us today. Thanks again, Announce
Thank you.
Alaji. And everyone have a great day, good hunting, and don't just count your barrels, count your blessings. Adios.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with ForexAnalytix. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.